Hello and welcome back to a special edition of NCSY Pulse at Binghamton University. I'm sitting here today with Elaine Braunshweiger. Elaine, welcome to the show. This has been an interview, I think that's been like a long time in the making, ever since we met / you intercepted me at Yarchikala last year. Twice. Elaine was she could not be stopped. Basically, we had the college track at Yarchikala.
Which I was not even technically part of.
Which you were not just not technically part of. You were not, you just showed up.
I was not there. Yeah, I just could drive and lived close enough.
That's, I guess, the benefit of living near Stanford. There's only one benefit, right?
Well, I think the benefit of living near Stanford is that I don't have to live in Stanford.
Yes. Wow. That's good. I like that people, it's funny because when everybody comes from all over the country, I've had these college students say to me all the time, you know, when we're there for Yarchikala anyway, do you think we could go and like tour downtown? And I'm like, downtown what?
Yeah.
And they're like, downtown of where we're going to be, of Stanford.
Downtown of Stanford is Manhattan.
Exactly. But it's like, oh yeah, sure, I can give you a virtual tour of downtown Stanford. There's Best Buy and Target.
And the rabbi's house.
I didn't know even the rabbi lived in downtown Stanford. So now I'm learning new things.
We'll have to ask Izzy if like downtown Stanford is a real spot.
Izzy Konevsky, also one of the Judah Fellows.
She's wonderful.
Who was also at that Yarchikala last year.
Yeah, but she was supposed to be on it.
She was supposed to be. So you were not supposed to be. You had just showed up. You were back, unfortunately, from your year in Israel early because of the situation. But I guess the side benefit for us was I was very excited to meet you. You were relentless in finding us. And now you're an actual legitimate Judah Fellow and one of our great campus leaders at Binghamton. Elaine, it's really fun to have you now that you're legitimately part of the program. It's great to have you. So give us a little bit of backstory. You were very involved in Northeast NCSY. Tell us, how did you get involved? What was your experience like?
So I actually got involved really, really early because, as you mentioned, I'm a little relentless. And I grew up always watching the kids older than me go away for weekends to these NCSY Shabbatones, and I wanted to go so bad. So in 6th grade, at age, I must have been 12 or 13, the rabbi was like, oh, we're going to start a junior NCSY chapter. And I looked at him, and I was like, if you're going to start a junior NCSY chapter, I'm your first member. Like, we're going now. If we get to go anywhere, I want to go. And after that, I just kept showing up to things that I wasn't really supposed to be at.
So you have a history of showing up to things you're not supposed to be at.
If the word NCSY is on it, I've decided that means that I'm allowed to be there. And most of the time, it's true.
Most of the time. Okay.
Most of the time.
You start off in junior NCSY.
Yes.
In Connecticut.
Yes. My first event was actually in Albany, New York, which is super cool. It's also where I met Devorah Cove. That is her last name.
Of course. Big fan of Devorah, formerly Weinstock, now Devorah Cove. Former regional director of Northeast NCSY. Yes. Friend of the show. Yes.
She's wonderful. And honestly, I think it's because of her that I stayed so involved. And I've said this to her before. She's fully aware. But the first time I met her, she scared me so bad.
Devorah is the least scary human you'll ever meet.
I know. She's so kind. She's so sweet. She wouldn't even hurt a fly. But she scared me so bad. And to be fair, it's because I was breaking the rules. I had explored the shul in Albany, and I was in a room that wasn't in the designated NCSY spot, but I wasn't doing anything bad. I was just going on an adventure. I wanted to see things.
So you're not, Elaine, you're not what we would call a rule follower.
Right.
In the classic sense. But not a rule breaker.
Not a rule breaker.
You're not bad.
A rule skirter.
Your rules adjacent.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I can see them out of the corner of my eye.
You're not flaunting the rules, but you're also not necessarily following them to the letter of the law.
Exactly. The way I've explained it before is when I started doing NCSY, like junior NCSY, and even honestly my first year of high school pre-COVID, I was like an out of the program kid. Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah,
We're familiar with
I was one of those. But then COVID hit, and suddenly I found myself totally lacking the Jewish community that I actually loved, because I grew up going to Jewish private school, and it's wonderful and it's great to grow up in that kind of atmosphere. But NCSY provided something extra that was exactly what I needed to love my Judaism without having to be forced into it in school and at home and in all of these things. Going to NCSY was my choice.
Outstanding.
And then during COVID and after COVID, I got as involved as I possibly could. I became vice president of my region. It was the greatest time of my life. It was so good. I loved what I did, and I would have kept doing it if I didn't have to graduate high school.
Right. Shame on you for finally following the rules.
Sorry.
And graduating high school.
I picked the wrong time to do that.
So you graduated high school. Obviously, a very challenging time going through COVID in high school and all the challenges that came along with that. And then you started a gap year.
I did.
In Israel.
I was there for exactly 2 months on the dot, August 17th to October 17th. I decided that the Rockets were not for me.
Right. I hear that. It's listen, it's a challenging time. There's no, unfortunately, there's no way around it in trying to find if there's a right plan or a wrong plan. And you came back. And I remember meeting you that winter at Yarach Kala. But kudos to you for not losing a step and saying, okay, I'm coming back. And even though this was not the original plan, this maybe wasn't my ideal plan, but also I'm going to kind of go back to my roots and go back to what I know. I'm going to get back involved in NCSY. And you applied to be a second semester Judah Fellow. And we were obviously very excited to have you right away. So tell us now.
You said yes, which was your fault.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the blame or the credit or both for bringing you in, but I remember sort of bumping into you at Yarach Kala and you saying, we need to talk. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes when that happens, it's like, okay, we need to talk.
And I had Gavi with me.
Am I in trouble? Yeah, well, Gavi is relentless. You are relentless.
Gavi
and
Sanders,
so
we love her.
Yes, shouts to Gavi Sanders and to all of the staff in Northeast. But you came back and you're very involved in Jewish life on campus at Binghamton. Tell us a little bit about what you do here Jewishly and how, I guess, your experience at NCSY has sort of propelled you forward.
Yeah. So a lot of what I do on campus, honestly, is volunteer work that doesn't really have a name. I am very involved with the Binghamton Chabad, which is great because another Northeast NCSY staff member, Hannah Kaplan, who graduated from here, she was best friends with Rifki, who basically runs our entire Chabad, and if you ask me, the entire world. She's amazing. I love her so much. And through Hannah, I was able to get in touch with Rifki before I even got on campus. And Rifki was like, if you're friends with Hannah Kaplan, I want you doing things for Chabad. So obviously I said yes. And then I started doing some volunteer hours like cooking and setting up and tabling in the library, in the union, on the spine. And then outside of that, I just started meeting people that were doing things and sitting with them and helping them do those things. Last semester, I helped Hillel put up hostage posters a lot, which was really very rewarding, but also sometimes horrible because sometimes people would rip them down because,
right.
I mean, it happens. It's a college campus, but I really am so lucky that I'm here at Binghamton and there are so many Jewish organizations that I'm able to balance using all of the resources I have there with being a Judah Fellow and bringing NCSY alumni together in some way.
So, you mentioned that you're putting up posters and you're obviously very involved in multiple Jewish organizations on campus. You also, unfortunately, mentioned that people are taking them down. And it's tough. We spoke to Josh Ackerman, another alum here at Binghamton. And we've spoken to our alumni and our Judah Fellows all across North America. And we know it's a challenging time on campus. How have you been dealing with the challenges here? You left at a time, you left Israel where there were rockets and there were missiles, and you had to make a decision that was right for you and for your family to come here, and probably not realizing how intense the situation would be on campus, obviously not to be compared to what it is in Israel, but challenging in its own right. How has it been for you, and how have you been coping in terms of what you've been experiencing here?
So, honestly, a lot of the things that happen on campus, I find them horrible, but I try not to let them affect me because the thing that I said when I was leaving Israel is, Am Yisrael lo lefachad, except for me, I'm very fached. And when I got to Binghamton, which, first of all, I had to fight for, the Binghamton administration did not want to let me end my deferral, but they did, which was great. And so when I got here, I knew that was a privilege, and I knew that there were going to be things on this campus that I didn't want to see, that I didn't want to deal with. And honestly, this is going to sound silly, but the first thing I did was I made a playlist of Hebrew music. I was like, every time I get frustrated, my headphones are going on, and this is what I'm listening to. And it does something and it calms me down and it makes me happier. But then there are bigger things that happen on campus. Like last semester, the building I was living in was right next to the encampment that got set up for 3 days.
Right.
And I remember I was making pasta with my friend in my microwave, and we started hearing people like rustling outside and setting up tents. We looked out the windows and we were like, no way that this is happening at Binghamton. But at the end of the day, as frustrating as it is, there's such a supportive community here. And when that happened, Chabad sent out texts. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was coming together. We called the university police. We were calling like state legislation. We were talking to people. And I'm not sure if the reason that they left was because it was about to be 3 days and then it would be illegal and they could get arrested, or if it was because of all of the work that we did. But either way, they left pretty fast, and we've always had a community that supports us here.
That is extremely valuable, knowing that there's a community that backs you, knowing that you can feel safe, even when there are blips on the radar that come up. It's good to know at least that you feel comfortable and that you feel safe, especially given the phenomenal Jewish infrastructure that exists on Binghamton. You talked about how you snuck into NCSY and started your experience, but then really jumped in fully committed. And it's clear that you did the same thing here. You jumped in, you're fully committed. Like you said, reached out to Chabad even before you were on campus. And you have that personality. Was there anything that you would say from your NCSY experience, whether it's Shabbatones or it was being part of, Devora Cove's board or any of your NCSY experience that you feel that because of what you went through in NCSY, because of overcoming challenges with COVID or just anything that you had in NCSY, that you feel that now you're in a stronger position here on campus?
Honestly, everything that I did for Northeast NCSY brought me to where I am today, but the most pivotal NCSY thing I ever did was go on a summer program. I went on Israel ID in 2021, right after COVID. There were still a couple of restrictions near the end of our trip. But that trip gave me the confidence to be the person that's sitting here right now. It taught me how to interact with new people, with people that had different opinions from the way that I was raised, people who came from a different town, because I'm from Connecticut, but that doesn't mean that I didn't grow up in a very small community. And it really just taught me how to take what I believe in, make it stronger, and then implement it when I had to leave that scenario. And I think that learning all of those things on that summer program and gaining all of that confidence was something that I was able to take back with me to America and then implement in my high school and implement in the work I was doing for Northeast NCSY and take with me to Israel again and then all the way to here. And I don't think that I would be this person without that.
Wow. Beautiful. Very well said. Who was the staff on your summer program on Israel ID?
Rabbi Yisrael Katz was our director.
Yisrael Katz. Good friend.
And our assistant director was Meira Greenland.
Wow. So you have connections.
I have connections.
So even though you're not necessarily supposed to be in a lot of these places, you find yourself connected all the way to the top.
Right. I'm not saying that. But at one point, Rabbi Greenland knew my name.
Okay. I'm sure he still does.
He probably does.
I am very fond of saying that I did NCSY as a high schooler on one Shabbaton a very long time ago. I did one Shabbaton in high school, but my advisor at the time was Micah Greenland, or as we now know him as Rabbi Micha Greenland, and so we've had a long-standing relationship. And I can tell you with certainty that he does still remember him. But even if we're not sure, maybe we'll try to quiz him at the end of this and see.
That would be fun.
So now you're here, you're on campus, and you're involved as an NCSY Judah Fellow, and you've clearly grown into a leadership role over the course of years with NCSY. Whether or not you were really supposed to be here from the very beginning, we're really happy that you're here.
Thanks.
So Binghamton is known as having an incredible Jewish both population. I've heard numbers from 17% to 25%, but an amazing Jewish infrastructure from Chabad to OUJLIC to Alumni on campus, really across the range, and even kosher options in the cafeteria. So I know that many people take advantage of the kosher food, but also a lot of students do their own cooking. Do you cook? Is that something that you find yourself excited about? Or you're like, no, I'll take up the kosher caf, but I am not cooking anything?
Okay. So, like many Ashkenazi Jews, I'm lactose intolerant, and that means that a lot of times,
We're just airing everything here.
listen, feeds into what I'm about to tell you, John.
Yeah.
Because of that, sometimes I'll walk into the kosher corner, which is what we call it, with 2 Ks, obviously.
Sure.
And I'm like, this is not going to go well for me. So I do cook in my dorm. I wouldn't say that I cook gourmet meals in my dorm, but, you know, all you really need is, like, minute rice, vegetables, and eggs, and an electric pot, and then you're golden. That's so much food right there.
So what you're saying is your go-to dish to cook on campus, as Josh comes back into the room, and it's good because I need some witnesses for this. You're telling us that when I ask you if you cook on campus, your go-to your go-to dish is minute rice and eggs. You cook your rice and your eggs.
I use the word vegetables in that sentence.
So it's vegetables, rice, and eggs together?
Listen, that's 3 food groups.
Outstanding. And what do we call this dish? It's just like the Elaine classic.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're just going to have to call it the Elaine classic. I am known, though, throughout my friends, for having a box of spices in my dorm.
Just a box of spices.
Just a box of spices.
General spices.
John.
Okay.
Like a lot of spices, because this way also, if the kosher corner is good, but maybe it needs a little bit of flavor.
Got it.
I have spices.
You have spices. You're the go-to.
That solves the problem.
You're the spice distributor.
That sounds bad, but yeah.
Sounds worse than it is. Okay. So you do have some cooking background, we'll call it. Do you have a favorite Jewish food?
Someone actually asked me this yesterday, and I didn't know what to tell them, because I could just tell you matzo ball soup.
Classic.
But I don't think that that's actually my favorite food. I think my favorite Jewish food that I consider a Jewish food, because it's my mom's, like, go-to Shabbos Chag, it's a brisket, and it's so good. And I've been thinking about it a lot, because she just made it for Rosh Hashanah, and it was so good. And I tried to convince her that she should make a second one so that I could freeze it and bring it up here.
And she said no?
And she said no.
Your mom said no to you?
My mom said no.
Oh, Elaine's mom, if you're listening to this, we got to get more food to send with Elaine up to school.
She did let me make meatballs, though, and so those are in my freezer. So my cooking can now also have meatballs.
Okay. And is there a least favorite Jewish food, or a Jewish food that you're just like, this is where I draw the line in the sand, no way?
People need to stop eating herring. It's not good.
It's not good. You're just saying objectively no to
it's
herring.
Bad.
It's objectively bad.
Rabbi Sammy is currently telling me no.
So, yes, Sammy is in the background here, waving his arms, jumping up and down, telling us that we're wrong. Josh, what do we think? Are you pro-herring or anti-herring? Josh doesn't know what herring is.
It's bad, Josh.
We need to do, I think, a taste test. Josh, do you like gefilte fish? No, Josh is shaking his head. No, he's not. So think gefilte fish, but way worse. That's herring. No
it's
way.
Bad.
Okay. So
You're outnumbered, Rabbi.
So yes to brisket, but no to herring.
But no to herring.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, well, Elaine, as we wrap up here, is there anything that you would like to say to people who are, beginning their journey, whether they're looking at schools in Israel now, seniors, or they're looking at college campuses as they're making their choices? Do you have a message to NCSYers and JSU teens who are now beginning that journey?
Honestly, I think that the only thing that I can say is when you pick a place, pick it because it has things that you love and a Jewish community. Because the number one thing that I think for Jewish students creates connections and networking and a sense of community is the Jewish presence on campus. And if you don't see a Jewish presence on campus, find a way to make one yourself, because I guarantee you there are other people who are thinking that, and you might just need to be the one that takes initiative.
Outstanding. Elaine, thank you so much for joining us on a program that you were, in fact, supposed to be at. So congratulations on your evolution. Absolutely. This has been NCSY Pulse, powered by NCSY Alumni. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at NCSY Alumni, and we'll talk to you soon.